Hey everyone, I'm Colin Weston, host of the Mod Golf Podcast. Welcome to our latest episode. Just finished up our audio portion of the Mod Golf Podcast with BODO SIEBER, who is the co-founder and CEO of Tagmarshal. I have had the pleasure of speaking to BODO a couple of times over the years. 2 years ago, we had him on the podcast, so it's really great to catch up with him and hear about all the great things business-wise and technology-wise that Tagmarshal has been up to for the last couple of years. But this conversation, we're going to do a little different here because, of course, we want you to go back and listen to what we just recorded here. So we're not going to talk about the same stuff. So we're going to talk about a couple of different things. So first thing I got to do is welcome him back to the show. So BODO, good to see you again. Welcome back to the Mod Golf Podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. Now I finally see you after the podcast, so this is great. I'm very excited. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. So if I understand, you're in South Africa. Are you in Cape Town, or where are you zooming in from today?
Indeed, I am in Cape Town. So I'm a German born and raised, so that's my heritage. Eins, zwei, eins, zwei, very efficient. I also lived in Ireland for a while, but Cape Town is another home of mine, if I'm not in Atlanta, where our US headquarters is based.
Nice, nice. So if I understand from our previous conversation, you were kind of a competitive rugby player. Is that correct? Is that kind of is that correct? Is that your sport of choice back in the day?
Yes, indeed. So that was my sport of choice throughout university and yeah, in high school. And I got to see the world with it and make many very good friends and have lots of battle scars from it. So yeah, many good memories. Absolutely.
Okay, so I have to ask you this question. I held this one off from our earlier conversation. How do you go from being a competitive rugby player in a sport like that to something that's almost completely opposite as far as being an individual sport, not as much physical contact unless you're, throwing clubs at each other or hitting balls at each other. How do you go from a love from a competitive sport like rugby to falling in love with golf, just as far as a recreational player before you wrapped your entrepreneurial journey around that? So how did you go from rugby to golf as an enthusiast?
For sure. It's a very natural progression, and you will see that there's a lot of really high and top quality team sports people that towards the end of their career, they're looking for what's next, right? And some might get into running or into cycling, and golf is just a great game because it is competitive, and obviously it's something that you can do for many decades. And it's something that even if you're in your mid 30s or 40s, there's many other people picking it up, So while you've missed out on your 20s in terms of those probably your best years to play golf while you're busy with other things, it's a very welcoming space with regards to you being a newbie, and it's something that you can really go and focus on, and it gets you out there, So I've really started to enjoy it, and challenging yourself. And there's always also a team aspect to golf as much as you're on your own, but you can design it like that for sure.
Yeah, nice, nice. So for our viewers here, let them know what the heck is Tagmarshal? What do you do, and why do you do it?
Yeah, so favorite topic, obviously. so Tagmarshal is a golf course optimization system. So what we do is our customer is the golf operator, so the people who run and manage golf operations, and we help them manage the traffic on the course and anything that moves on the course with regards to players, golf carts, machinery by the superintendent. So we make sense of all of those moving parts. And ultimately, the key benefits of managing the traffic well is that, if your pace of play is great and it takes a little less time to play and there's consistency, the players love that. If you manage the space well, you can get more efficiencies out in how you do it, so you can save money, but also you can generate more business by adding additional capacity and doing it safely. So it's a business solution, if you will, for golf operators.
Nice, nice. So we did talk a lot about your origin story, your aha moment in 2014 and a little earlier of the creation of Tagmarshal and the business model around that. We do want to focus more on what you're doing now and the future. But I did have one other question, because we do have a lot of entrepreneurs in the golf space and in every other sector, tech and non-tech. And one of the kind of the business pieces you need to put together, whether it's your pitch deck or even seeing if it is a viable business here, is they talk about kind of the total accessible market and then that serviceable market. So you talk about that as far as who are your customers, and globally, how many potentially around the world are there?
Sure. That is something that maybe if you're coming up with your idea is not something that you grasping necessarily, because it's a big wide world, right? But we realize that there's 34,000 golf operations, and also as it happens, almost half of them are in one country, which is the US. So where a lot of people are saying, well, there's such a boom of golf in Asia, on what basis, so it's actually, if there are a couple of hundred courses being built in China, that is great for the game and that's great for the growth into China, but actually it's a couple of hundred courses where you've got 15,000 in the US. So we very quickly realized if there's one country that we need to focus on, it's that one. And Canada, also interesting for us because there's 2,300 or so, 2,500, I'm not quite sure, operators. And you need to understand that space, which ones are addressable in terms of your culturally accessible, language-wise, where do you have networks and connections, and where can you get started? So that is something where we wrapped up the opportunity in the biggest possible pond, and we did not start in a home market, which could have been Ireland, the UK, Germany, South Africa, anywhere else. We went straight to the source, and it was a big gamble doing it remotely as well. We've obviously since boosted our resource base in the States immensely, but initially everything happened remotely, but it did pay off because there was attraction. And there was an interest, and they were the pioneering first generation customers that have helped us to get to where we are now.
Nice. So we talked a lot about the customer experience and also the user experience, the actual players earlier, and talked about how your customers, your buyers, your purchasers, make extra revenue. So let's flip that around a little bit and talk about how they can save money, and that's the bottom line. So there's huge opportunities there as far as what pain points are you removing and what gains, what opportunities are you providing. You're doing both. So let's talk about this, the kind of the sustainability side of what you're doing, because of course every single golfer on the course is then heat mapped and traced and geofenced, and you're able to know exactly where they're hitting their balls and where they're not. So can you talk about how, now that you've got this massive data set for every golf course for your customers, how you're able to then translate that into informed analytics that then they can look at, and it's like, no one's hitting the balls over here, so we should stop watering over here. We should just let that grow wild and kind of reduce certain things as far as operations, which is a massive savings for them. So talk about that opportunity for your customers.
Sure. So, I mean, in terms of the golf space, there are two. Well, I think the simple way of putting it, you're running a farm basically, right? Which is a lot depends on climate conditions, and it's hard to keep that going at a high yield, if you will. Then you're running retail, which is a pro shop, and you're running restaurants. So those are all three industries where you can lose a lot of money very quickly. And also because you're running a farm, you've got a very high cost base, right? You've got, like you mentioned, you've got your maintenance, and because course conditioning is such an important factor for golfers in terms of how they measure their experience, a lot of effort goes into the space. So we realized if we can add value here, then this is obviously of high interest to the operators. So they're looking for ways to reduce costs. And one of the biggest cost bases on the course is conditioning, like I said, but labor is a huge chunk of this too. So the two ways in which we add value here is, one is you can manage your space with less labor hours, in that where the traditional way of marshalling and managing course traffic is to have some warm bodies out there that try and make sense of the space and talk to people. So we are adjusting that using technology, and it's the Waze or the Google Maps of golf course traffic, if you will. And the other portion is, if we have all this data now, what can we do with it, right? So we are able to show the superintendent and the pro a heat map of their course, where they can look at what are the high impact zones where there's lots of, especially cart traffic over time. How can we protect the space? And a lot of courses are making use of this preemptively, where they have anecdotally they know if there's lots of compaction, it starts to cost us money, and the course is stopping to look as good as it should. We need to work around it. Well, they can now preemptively look at what are these compaction areas and protect it better with geofencing and so on, or signage or adjusted parts. But the other side of things is also what are the savings opportunities in terms of irrigation, in terms of maintenance hours, in terms of fertilizer. And the obvious thing to look at is where do people not go? Like if you've got a big fairway or you've got a rough that you're looking after, where do people not go? And how can we turn a 360 sprinkler into a 180? Half the irrigation costs saved. And we did an extensive study that we supported the USGA with a course down in Florida that had a 7-digit irrigation cost annually, 7 digits for water. And they obviously look to make that more sustainable. So they use the heat mapping data to overlay the course and advised and guided a course architect to make some adjustments. So the first thing that they looked at, where can we save money in irrigation? Let's do that right away. But also, where can we potentially adjust some areas to reduce expensive turf into, say, clay and some indigenous plants. You mentioning letting it go wild. That is not a thing that golf course superintendents want to ever do. But if you've got clay that is super low maintenance and you put a few indigenous plants on, that is a great way that actually looks great as well of reducing your turf. And this course is going forwards is saving $400,000 a year in irrigation costs by making some adjustments that are informed by data. And what was really great, and it was a fair way by the USGA to utilize this data, they asked the architects, so based on your experience with this course, what would you do? And they had a lot of good ideas, and then let's overlay the data. And the architects outright said, we only got it right 60% of the time because we didn't have the information. So now we can be almost twice as good, and we can inform you and advise you even better than we ever could because we have the exact data of where people are moving, where they're going, where they're not going. So you can imagine the opportunity that brings, in adjusting courses, also doing low-cost adjustments, cutting a tree down, things like that, right? If you have information, you can make better decisions, and this is where data is your best advisor to your business.
Yeah, I love this, and what you're creating, that was $400,000 of just pure profit. And one thing for any industry or for any customer for products or services, what you're doing there, or you're helping do, is you're actually reducing the costs, but you're not reducing the quality of the experience. Even though you reduce the irrigation and the maintenance costs by, let's say, 40% or so there for that particular golf course, you don't have players, users walking off the course and feel that the experience and the aesthetics have been reduced by 40%. In fact, they're the same, if not even better, with what you've actually created there. So that's what you want. That's kind of that golden egg of kind of entrepreneurial opportunity there, is that you're reducing costs, but you're increasing value. And it sounds like you're doing that for your customers, which are becoming your biggest fans and ambassadors. So with that, you've got a big fan and ambassador with Whistling Straits. I had the chance to see you tell that story at the virtual PGA show. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that as a great case study and a great story with the relationship you have with Whistling Straits?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to be joined by Michael Riley, who's the director of golf operations at Whistling Straits, which is actually a resort comprising of 4 golf courses. So there's the Straits and the 3 sister courses. So they have been multi-year partners of ours, and where Michael's excited was not only are they hosting the Ryder Cup this year, they're also always willing to share with the rest of the industry what they're learning, because they're a standout operator. And a few of the things that they've learned over time. So it was obviously immediate cost savings, because you can work smarter with technology, helping you reduce labor hours and reduce certain job functions, but also you can get more out of other job functions. So that was important to him. And what they, as good business people, like you mentioned, the experience is always paramount. We're trying to provide the best possible experience for our guests and players that come to the resort. And that was always the driver. And he said, almost as a byproduct, once we started doing this really well, and their main focus is to provide the best possible pace of play alongside the amazing service and the amazing course that they're offering, they're saying we need to present our course in a tip-top flow and pace way every single day, because the expectations of our players are so high, and we want to make sure that we meet that and raise it, match and raise that expectation every single day. So they have over time they're already well managed, but they went from 55% on pace to over 75% on pace over time, which is a big improvement. And then they realized we can now safely add additional capacity, which to them meant found revenue, if you will, because additional tea times mean obviously additional green fees, additional food and beverage, and in their case, additional nights at the hotel, another round at one of the other courses, visit at the spa, another meal, so it incrementally increases. And like I mentioned, the golf course is such a high fixed cost base that sometimes a 2% increase in capacity means an 8% increase in profit, right? Because your cost base is so high. And that's exactly where they're getting the most out of their asset now, in terms of what they're looking for is ways to work smarter, provide the best possible play experience, which earns you the right to more people coming and wanting your experience that you're selling, and then maximizing revenue opportunities. And it's great to have such a high standing partner. So being so transparent around their experience and showing the data. What he did not do is he did not do the math in terms of this is what it's worth to us, but you can very quickly do that if you know the sort of green fee that Whistling Straits commands, and you get dizzy very quickly as to what it's worth to their operation.
Wow. So between generating more revenue, reducing fixed costs, and making players and staff more happy, sounds like you're doing some things right. Sounds like you've managed to figure this out. I think you got a business here. Maybe you should look at something like this. Maybe you should do something here. Oh, wait a second, you are, and you've done very well on that over the last couple of years. And I've been watching your trajectory, and it's great, because as we both know, the golf industry overall, as far as embracing technology and innovation, has been a laggard. And you are one of the groups and technologies that is raising awareness and propelling them forward and making them feel more comfortable, and is enabling them to realize, it affects the bottom line and the experience in a positive way. So you're doing great stuff out there. And I also love the sustainability piece myself as an architect and sustainable designer, the fact that you are reducing the environmental footprint through the data you're collecting, so golf courses can make better decisions. You talked about the USGA relationship you had. I had Larry Gahuli, who's one of the lead agronomists for the USGA, and what he's doing with the Tee It Forward program by tracking ball movement and where people are actually hitting it, and that reduces times also. So you're integrated with so many different partners and doing so many things that it's impressive, and I'm glad to see that you're moving forward in such a positive way. So I do want to talk about the future here as we finish up here, Bodo. And one thing I wanted to talk about, of course, we're having this conversation still during a global pandemic. So you've added a feature with Tagmarshal as far as social distancing on golf courses. Can you tell us a little bit about that? If that feature is your response to COVID?
So when COVID hit, obviously we are now serving customers in 14 different countries, right? So with COVID first arriving or arriving in some European countries sooner, we could see how the local courses were responding, and also the sort of stringent rules that they were put under by the local health authorities. And then we realized, well, there's no playbook for this, right? A lot of our partners in the US and Canada, they don't know what's coming their way. We might have a week or two's head start here that we're learning from our partners in Spain and so on. Well, we can actually make information available. And there were things that you would have seen, Colin, is that, well, single riders, safe, right? Or how can we reduce touch points? So you would find a pool noodle in the cup on the green. or a little gadget to get your ball out without you touching it, and putting the rake outside the bunker, no bunker raking, things like that, right? All of these rules that it seemed like within a couple of days became normal for the golf world. Well, somebody had to come up with this, right? So we collected and we looked at how can we add value again, because it's in our best interest if the industry does well and if our partners are thriving, how can we add value? And we collected as much information as we could from these various partners of ours in those early moving up the curve COVID regions and shared it across everyone. So then we did a webinar with Pinehurst, with Eastlake, and with the club from Florida to say, like, what are you guys doing, and what can you teach others? What have you learned? And try to just become a bit of a platform for sharing. And one of the things that we were fortunate enough to do, because we work closely with the European Tour as well, and we're doing a lot of work in the golf tournament management space, there was a tool that we were working on, which is effectively a gap time monitor. So gap time on a golf course is basically adherence to the interval between the playing groups. So that is your gap time. And what you're trying to do in managing the pace and the flow of play, making sure that that gap time, the time gap between groups stays the same throughout. So that doesn't reduce where it's supposed to be 8 or 9 minutes or 10 minutes. It doesn't reduce down to 5 or extend up to 15. And the tours are putting a lot of emphasis on this. So we built a tool that would visualize the gap time so that you could immediately see if there was groups getting too close to each other. And we realized that's exactly what the health authorities are asking the golf courses to provide, a safe space for players. They need to look out for themselves in terms of their distance between the players, but we need to create a space that doesn't crowd and there's no bunching up on tee boxes and so on. So the gap time monitor that we've been working on for a couple of months, all of a sudden we realized, well, if we accelerate the development and get it out to the market, this can actually help the operators as a social distancing tool. And they can show the health authorities that they're compliant, which makes sure that they're open. And also they can tell golfers it's safe to play here. And you're welcome to play and we'll look after you. So we were probably the only technology company in golf within that 2 months of lockdown that launched any sort of product. And it was pure luck because we had it ready to go and we just gave it a name. But what was interesting to see was that the operator said, this is brilliant, you know, this is helping us so much. But when this whole COVID thing is over, can we still have this tool? Because we're really enjoying it. So we said, yeah, it was designed for that and we're going to rename it. It's not going to be a social distancing monitor forever. So that's how we try to add a bit of value into a space. Obviously, that is the basis of our business. And thankfully, golf, as we all know, has proven very resilient and has actually had a bit of a boost in that period.
Nice. So some great entrepreneurial nuggets of wisdom there for everybody out there that have products or are looking to develop something. You use the V word there as far as adding value. How can we add more value, right? And that turns what you do and good entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs do, is you ask questions to customers and what they want and users and listen, and then integrate that into the products and services that you're providing, rather than just create something and then just try to shove it down someone's throat or then go madly looking around for people to sell something to. Because as we know, the worst thing for entrepreneurs to do is create a solution that's looking for a problem, right? And that doesn't work. So inspirational as always, everything that you provide here. So, hey, why don't we finish it up here? Because of course we do want our viewers here to go back and listen to our awesome, engaging conversation we had. We talked about so many other things as far as the origin story of Tagmarshal and the other things that you've been working on and the experiences that you create here. So down in the links, of course, below here, we do include that for our conversation there. I'll also include some links so you can connect directly with Tagmarshal also there to find out all the good things that they are doing. So hey, why don't we finish it up there? So hey, BODO SIEBER, co-founder and CEO of Tagmarshal, it is so good to see you again, and hopefully we see each other in person. Maybe we'll even get on the golf course together and actually play around together, and that would be amazing. Hopefully that happens sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I look forward to that. And like you mentioned, we last checked in at the virtual PGA show, and that's the one thing that I know our team missed the most, is just the engagement, the being part of the community. And also, yeah, just patting some of our partners on the back and saying, you guys are doing great and you're getting such phenomenal results. So hopefully next year, and that would be a big goal. And if not earlier, round of golf, maybe share a cool drink. That would be most appreciated. And I know we are going to have a great conversation.
Absolutely. Although I'm a little worried though, because then you're going to be able to heat trace and know exactly where all my bad leaky slices go off to the right. Though you'll be, I can't. The data won't lie about that. You'll see all my bad shots there. You'll be able to track them all. So, Bodo, it was great to see you. You take care, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Colin. All the best.